Hello there. So today I'm going to be covering how I use ChatGPT to find high probability levels in trading. So just from an example here, this is one I've done quite recently. It's the New York midnight level. So across certain sessions, I tested what was the probability of each of those sessions retesting that level throughout the day. And you can see here we've got some pretty decent probabilities going on. I did that over 460 plus instances, so quite a lot of data. So today I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. I'm going to show you the process you need to follow in order to do it yourself, so you can test any level you want. Um, and then what I'll also do is I'll dig deeper into these statistics myself, and hopefully we'll find even more nice alpha. So stick around to the end to see that. But yeah, the process is going to be how to gather the data, how to validate the data, and how to interrogate the data. So that's what we're going to be going over, and I'll give you some tips and tricks along the way on how to use ChatGPT to the best of your advantage as a trader. So first thing you need to do, get yourself a blank chart. Select the time frame that you want to use, because what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be exporting the candlestick data, so the open, high, low, close data. All right. The more the chart that you scroll and load, so you can see there's gaps and then it loads like that, the more data you're going to export, okay? So it hasn't loaded the rest of the chart data, but it's only loading what I've viewed. So it's like the viewable chart data is the one you will export, right? Very simple. So what you're going to do is you're going to go up to the layout section up here, manage layouts, little drop down, and you're going to hit export chart data. So the only time format that I use is the Unix timestamp, and I'll go over that in a second. But that's going to export the chart data on a UTC time format. Okay, so I'm looking at UTC -4, which is the New York time zone, but we're going to need to convert that. So that's going to be, partly what we do with ChatGPT. So we're going to export chart data. We're going to hit export. And then what we're going to do is go over to our downloads, and you can see over here, this is the new chart data. So you can see the file 110, and this is all of the data that we've just loaded. All right. So this is a comma separated file, whatever it is, format, V, whatever the V stands for. You've got time, open, high, low, close. All right. So there's your time, and that is the Unix timestamp. So that is assigned to a specific time and a specific day. All right. So first task we're going to need to do is we're going to need ChatGPT. So we'll go over to ChatGPT, and we create a new window here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to send that over, and we're going to drop it there. And now the first tip for using ChatGPT is to treat it a bit like a hyper intelligent child. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, this is NASDAQ 1 hour chart data. Excuse my poor typing. Convert the time from Unix time stamp into a, oh my god, my typing, into a human readable format, such as days, months, years, hours, minutes, like that. What is going on with my typing? So that's going to be the first test, or the first stage of data validation. We need to make sure that ChatGPT is able to identify the correct prices of specific candles on specific days and time. Okay, so when you're testing something like the New York Midnight, which is something I was testing, I need to make sure that it's able to identify the precise opening price of New York Midnight. Okay, so a lot of the work here comes from the validation stage. It comes from being able to actually say that was the correct price, okay, because otherwise your data is going to be skewed. So here you can see it has converted it into our format. So we've got here 2024 0514, so it's the 14th of May 2024. So just going to make this a little bit bigger. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over the validation stage, and we're just going to make sure that it is able to find the correct days. So now convert the the time and date into UTC -4 New York time. Timestamp have been converted. Perfect. So now we get to the stage where we have to actually validate the data. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do for validation is I'm going to use a indicator to help me actually spot what I'm looking for. So I've got this indicator here called New York Open, which helps me find the actual New York midnight price. Okay. So here you can see, here's the New York midnights. So what I'm going to do is just pick at random this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a horizontal ray and I'm going to pop it on the New York midnight level like that. And that now gives me a price. So 2012.25. Okay, and you can see that was Friday, the 4th of October, and that was the midnight price. Perfect. So I'm going to do is go back to ChatGPT. I'm going to say, find the midnight price for 4th of October 24. Midnight open price for the 4th of October 2024. So we're expecting 2012.25. And there it is. Perfect. So if I was to have exported a huge amount of data at once, I've seen it get it wrong. So that must be some sort of flaw with TradingView. So if you want to make sure that you don't have to go through this process again and again and again and get the validation done as quickly as possible, use smaller sets of data. So more, but with less data, if that makes sense. So use like 2 to 3 month intervals and just keep loading ChatGPT with as much data as you can possibly get in your chart. You may need premium to actually achieve the best results here. I'm not sure whether you need premium to actually export chart data, but you'll have to fact check me on that. I've always had premium and I've always been able to do this, so it's not been a problem for me. You may be able to do it without, not sure. But if you also have premium, you also have more, you have access to more data, so you actually be able to backtest more. So now it's validated the correct time of that price. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a couple more examples. I'm just going to close my eyes and there. Where am I? Wrong start. Yeah, that'll do. There. Right. Just do that again. Bang. Now tell me. Great. Now tell me the, what was that date? The 6th. The 6th of September 24. For 19101.75. Perfect. So do this a few times just to make sure, double check. And there you've got it. So that's how I validated the time of this specific data set. And what you should now go on and do is go back and scroll through the price that the time that you haven't loaded yet and give it another export. Okay, so here we can see a little bit more chart data. I'm going to now grab all of that. So previously we'd loaded all the way up to here, I think. So let's just double check. What is the first day in your data set? So the 14th of May. So we managed to give him as much data as the 14th of May. So it's back here, actually. So if I just go back here, you see how it's no chart data there, and I let go, bang, I've just loaded a bit more. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to grab this, export again, export. Here is a new export file. Repeat the same process as before and merge the current data. So go to my downloads, grab the new file. So the new file is 291. We see that was a little bit later, so we grab that one, boom, pop it in. There he goes. Let that do the process, and then we just repeat the exact same process. Okay, so if I go to here, New York Open, I pick a random day, there. Okay, so here, okay, so now look what happens here. So our New York price has loaded at 11 a.m. Okay, so what does that tell us? Well, it tells us there is a daylight savings period. Okay, so this is something you should account for because you are going to get a skew in your data. So this is something that we can do. So here I can see that it's loading at 11, so I'm just going to keep going back until I see it's actually correctly loaded on the actual day. There, so you can see on this day it was 11, and on this day it was midnight. So what we're going to do is, now that we've got this new data file here, I'm going to say, what is the earliest day in your data set now? Okay, so now we've got all the way back until the 17th of August. So I'm going to tell him now I can see there is a DST, daylight savings time, shift around the 8th of March. Was it March? Yep, 8th of March 2024. Please fuck off. Account for the daylight savings in the data set while finding the New York midnight open price. Search the web to find all the correct DST shifts and correct the data accordingly. So this is a process that is actually quite important because you want the most accurate data as you possibly can. So now I've got it accounting for daylight savings. I'm going to just repeat the same process again, just validation. All right. So we'll do that next. Okay, so apparently he's done it. Let's do the validation. Right, so where is our price gone? Right, okay, so I'm just gonna do validation on either side of the daylight savings now. So what I'm gonna do is grab this price here. There you can see, not quite. Make sure that's properly anchored. There we go. You can see midnight right there. So 737.25 on the 20th of March. So we're going to go to here. I'm going to say, what was the New York midnight open price on the 20th of March 24? That should be 737.25. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to go the other side of daylight savings. I'm just going to say, what was... Oh, we'll need to just adjust this indicator slightly. So put that to 5. Should move it. Perfect. Okay, so now what the price was there. So this next question, so what date was that? What was the New York midnight open price on the 26th of Feb 24? So that should be 18685.5. Perfect. There we go. So now we've got the data gathered, we've got the data validated. You just want to make sure that validation is completely clear, and you want to make sure that that is right, because that is the most crucial stage. And then we'll move on to the interrogation. Okay, so now we're on to the interrogation section. So this is where we need to start thinking a bit more critically, and we need to ask the right questions. Obviously, we need to frame the context a little bit. So let's think about the New York Midnight, and let's think about how we can possibly use that. Okay, so how I did it was I said, right, here's the London session, here's the New York session in the AM, and here's the New York session in the PM. Okay, so what I want you to do is tell me across those sessions how many occasions did price retest that level. Okay, and again, you can't just say like these simple things. It's basically a really hyper intelligent child. You've got to teach it exactly what you want. This is all like training, okay? And when you build this training and this logic within the chat, like it gives you the ability to then like get the details that you want. Okay, so we need to be specific. It's very important that you are super specific. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just give it some context. So I define my trading sessions by London, which is 030 to, let's say, 929 or 0929 UTC -4. Okay, so we'll just do London. We won't go into too much detail. Tell me on how many occasions did the price during this session retest the New York midnight level. This is, just be super specific. The more specific you are, the better the results are going to be, and the less you'll have to talk to it. Okay, a retest. This is an important session, an important point. A retest is defined as any candle during any candle's high or low exceeding the New York midnight level on that specific day. Okay, so only count retests of the same day, and during the London session I have defined. Okay, so just being super specific. There we go. So to calculate the number of times, identify the New York midnight opening price for each day, filter the data. So what he's doing is he's now taking this piece of data that we've got, and he's adding a new, a new section here. So you can see this is all of the data that we've added to it. So this is going to be an important thing that we do in a second. We're going to actually export this because it's going to be important down the line. I'll explain. So to calculate the number of times, I'll identify the New York midnight open level, filter the data for the London session for each day, check if the high or low of any candle during that session exceeded the New York midnight price, and count occurrences where this retest happens. Okay, so he's told me that it's happened on 303 occasions. Give me details of how many total days it did or did not retest. Then give me a percentage probability of calculation. Okay, so there was total 365 days worth of data that we provided it, And 303 of those days, London did test that level. The days it didn't retest was 62. All right, so that gives us an 83% probability that London will indeed retest New York Midnight. Now that's a huge edge. That's a huge, huge edge, because you can go into every single London session and you can basically say, if you are below New York Midnight and you haven't retested it, you can long with an 83% probability that you're going to test that level. Likewise, if you're above that level, you can go into the London session and you say, I've got an 83% probability based upon my data that I'm going to retest that level so I can look for shorts. Okay, and that's essentially where I've built my trading biases from at the moment. And then what I've gone on and done is I've defined New York AM sessions and New York PM sessions, and I've then done some like cross-examination on those. So I'll just give you that data now. So to save me going through that process again, you can kind of see you can see the process now. So you're able to repeat that yourself. You're able to go through, just make sure you validate the data, make sure that you then interrogate it, you ask it to do specific things, be specific. It's so, so important. And what you can also do now is you can maybe go on to like the 30-minute chart, the 15-minute chart, the 5-minute chart, and just load more data in, validate it, and then add it to the the existing data set that you've got, because you want to build up that data set as much as you can, make sure it's as accurate as possible, and then you can start asking more in-depth questions. Okay, so the actual stuff I got, so I'll just put all them on because I have no idea where it is. Go on high time frame, there it is. So you can see here, this was all of the data I got out of it. So I did 464 days worth of data, and on 369 of those, London tested, and 95 of them it didn't. So around 80% of the time, London will retest the New York Midnight. You see on New York AM, it's about 60%, and New York PM is about 40%. Then what I did was I did some cross-session conditional probability. So I asked it to say, if London did, what was the probability that New York AM would? And if New York AM did, what was the probability of New York PM doing it? So now you can start to build even more biases. So you can see, if London does not retest, there is a 66% probability that New York AM will also not retest. So if London session doesn't, so on those 20% of occasions, London session just doesn't do it, you've got a 66% probability that New York AM will not. Okay? Likewise, if London does retest, the probability of New York AM testing is also around 66%. So whether London does or doesn't, it gives you a probable outcome or bias towards New York AM. Okay? So that's essentially the whole process. That's exactly how I did it, and that's how you can do it too. Okay, so a really important thing that we do right now, and this is one of the first tips, is to get the data out of ChatGPT, because it will delete it, it will forget it, because these things can't store all your data and everyone else's data, all these millions of people. So what we need to do is we need to first of all say export the latest data set in CSV format so I can save it. Okay, then he's going to give you a new export, and this is important. I'll explain more in a sec. So here it is. Just click that file right there. That should drop into our downloads. You can see it right here. There it is. So now we've got NASDAQ merge data with retest. So this is all of the information that we've just built. Okay, so this is all the data that we've just created. Okay, it's very important you go and get your data, because ChatGPT will forget it. All right, next. Now this one's a little bit, well, it's pretty cool actually. ChatGPT is, again, it's going to forget you. It's going to completely like mess you up if you try and go back later on and try and get more information out of the same chat. So it's important what we do next is we pull out all the training and all the logic that we've provided. Okay, so here's what we do. We say, based on all the training / logic I have provided you in this chat, please write me a, please, I'm so polite, Python script so that I can train a new GPT model to pick up where we left off. Okay, and ensure all the time and price information I gave you is included. And yeah, okay, so what it's going to do now is it's going to create a Python script, and you can see here it's load the data set. That's what we'll do. Convert Unix time to a human readable format, so we don't have to follow that process again. We're just simply collecting, we're simply just going to be loading the new chat with this logic, so it's already working all that out for us. We handle the DST, or the daylight saving shifts. We're correcting time formats, yada yada. New York midnight time for each day. You can see that. It's then going to identify the London session for us. Obviously, if we include more sessions, it can do that as well. Then it calculates the retest probabilities for us and all that good stuff. Okay, so what you're going to do there, click copy, open up a notepad. Sorry about that. That's very bright. Save that. I've got here New York midnight logic. You can just see here, test. There we go. So that's now stored all that data for us. So what we can do is we can just open a new chat up here, and then we can go grab this, drop that in there, and we can also go to, where was my other file? I think it's in here, testing, and there we go. So then you drag this in here as well. Okay. So now we're basically able to take a new ChatGPT chat and give it exactly the same training that we've just given the last one. So this is important if you want to go back to this over a course of like a few days or something like that, because our previous chat that we just had is basically just going to become useless in the next few hours because it will just delete it. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to be actually going through some more data gathering and some more data analysis for myself. So I'm going to be going over the New York midnight level, but I'm going to be going into more detail. So I want to find out, like, on days where London didn't test the New York midnight, like, what was the average or the median, like, distance the price had traveled? So I want to, like, measure, like, in ticks. So I'm going to, like, teach ChatGPT how to measure in ticks, and I'm going to ask it to tell me, you know, on average, how many ticks had price moved when there wasn't a retest. You know what I mean? So that's something I'm going to check. I just want a bit more granularity. I want a little bit more of an edge on these, and yeah, there's a few other things I want to do with the data, but that's what I'm going to do right now. So what I'll do is I'll record me doing that, and I'll put it on speed up, you know, increase speed, and yeah, hopefully that'll be a nice little end to the video, and I can give you some nice alpha on the back of it. So enjoy. Okay, so here is my data that I gathered from January 23 to October 24. If it loads, there it is. So you can see all of the prices, all the retests. This is all my data that I've done. This is all validated. So what I'll do is I'll actually include that in the description below, whatever. You can download that if you want. And I've also got my logic, which I'll also include for you as well, if you just want to use this to pick up where you left off. So the process I'll be following now is I'll be bringing that data into a new ChatGPT chat, and then I'll make sure that I validate it all, make sure that's correct, it is reading it correctly, and then I will start asking more critical questions that I want to ask, and finding what I want to find out. So yeah, I'll speed up this next bit, but yeah, you'll see the process anyway. So stick around if you want that data, and yeah, put some tunes on and dive in. Okay, so one of the things I've just worked out, let me just pause music. One of the things I've just worked out is of the days that price didn't retest the New York midnight level, um, what was there a particular day in which it was happened more often or not? And as you can see from this data here, of the London session and the non-retest occurrences, you know, it's pretty much an even distribution. It looks like Friday is the least likely, um, and it looks like Monday is the most likely to not retest. Okay, so what does that tell you? Friday's probably choppy, and not very expansive. Okay, so I've finished doing the data, and I've managed to find out what I was looking for, which was, what was the average or the median tick distance between London Open and New York Midnight, and how likely was it to retest based upon that distance. So this was the original data that we talked about before. You can see that, but now I've got this as well. So the tick distance insights, average tick distance from New York Midnight to London Open is 100 ticks. The median, obviously, which would exclude major outliers, is around 75. So usually we can expect London Open to be around 75 to 100 ticks away. If it's within 50 ticks, you've got a higher probability, or a third, nearly a third of a chance of price retesting. And as you can see, as the ticks begin to increase, as the chances of retest begin to decrease. So obviously, the further away it is, the less likely. That's just basic logic. That makes sense. It's nice to see that the data is logical. So the average tick distance on retest days is 68 ticks, and the median tick distance is around 50. The interquartile range, standard deviations, we don't need to cover too much. We don't know, overcomplicate it. But the average tick distance on a non-retest day is around 115 ticks, and the median tick distance on non-retest days is around 86 ticks. So, in conclusion, this is the conclusion I've drawn up with it, is when the London Open is around 100 ticks or more away from the New York midnight price, the likelihood of a retest decreases significantly. These days are typically characterized by low probability for a retest unless major volatility occurs, which we know obviously happens on the NQ. But this just gives us a really nice guideline now. So if price opens up 100 ticks or above, like you can see in this example here on the chart on the 17th of October, you're in a low probability environment. If you're trying to catch a short back down to New York midnight, you're probably not gonna get get your way, and the plan's probably not going to come to pass. But at least now you've got a little bit more data to work with, and you can use this in your trade. And go ahead and do some of this testing. I hope this was helpful. I have quite a few people asking me to make this video, so I'm glad I could bring it to you. And this is the conclusion. Let me know if you do this yourself and what levels you find, and share the alpha. And thanks for watching. Thank you.